Recording on Friday, February 21st, 2025 at 12:11 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Tom Luongo. You guys can go to the description. You can find his blog, his Patreon, his Twitter, all that good shit. Go show him some love. You were just saying the keys are on the keyboard, volume and sleep. I use an iMac literally for the podcast and nothing else.
Hmm.
The gaming computer, which I have back there, the fucking Windows key. So when I'm streaming on OBS, I don't know
Hmm.
why, I guess, and I use a streaming PC too. So it's this whole like fucking Manhattan project over there. If I hit Windows, it opens Windows, which is fine. It closes the game. It causes OBS not just to freeze, but to come to a literal screeching halt. So,
Wow.
and it's right th it's next to shift. So you're playing a shooter and you're shifting, and you're dodging, and you're
Right, right.
every once in a while I'll hit it and I'll go, oh no, and I pull my headphones off because it just does this like and it screeches right in your ear. It fucks up the stream. So
Oh,
I
wow.
don't I've actually debated getting like one of those nuclear button like cases that they have on like the subs where it has the plastic cover on the red button because it's fucked
Yeah.
me up so many times. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's I mean first world problems. But,
No, what Tommy's referring to here is that I was logging into the Zoom call, and I was trying to raise the volume on my speaker so that I could actually hear him, and it's right next to it on the particular keyboard that I have. The functioning key is to put the machine into is to shut the machine down, which is like
absolute AIDS.
really,
It's
like,
AIDS.
you know,
It's
it's
AIDS.
it's
And
time it I and it's funny. It's like I know I'm gonna have to get rid of this keyboard as much as I love the old Logitech Solar chiclet keyboards, and I found a couple on the cheap, used, but like there's enough like problems with the ones I ordered like three of them online, and the guy sent them to me, and none of them worked.
um
like,
well
like, are
I'm
you fucking kidding me? And my old one has got like real issues. So it's really funny. It's like a couple of the keys, like the backspace key and the Q key, I don't even have to press for them to trigger because there's just issues. So I'm like doing stuff, and I'll just get random cues everywhere, and it's really fucking me up playing World of Warcraft because of course that's strafe left, and
yeah,
I usually play World of Warcraft with my fingers over Q, W, and E,
yeah.
right, for move forward and strafe left and right. I don't really use A and D for much at all, and so I'm like constantly like interrupting myself, like interrupting casts and spell casts, and drinking while I'm the healer, and like I'm burning through water like I shouldn't have to, and it's just really annoying
And
because
I'm
we're
just
running. Everybody's waiting on me, and I'm like, well, sorry, I got to drink again
I
because
know. I always clarify this. I'm posting the live link. I'm not playing with my phone like a fucking faggot host. I was gonna like now it's not until you said it, you're like, well, because you were saying beforehand, you were like, and not only that, you're like, Word isn't as good on Apple as it is on.
no, it's
And no,
not
you're right. And it's got me thinking like, why do I use other than just growing up with it? I mean,
right.
iPhone. I mean, I do like the kind of it's like synced up, which I'm sure you can do with any phone. I'm just retarded, but like I do like, especially doing the podcast where I can go from texting you to you can send me something on Zoom and I can copy and paste it and it comes right to my like I like all that and
Mhm.
I'm just used to the loadout more than anything. But I
Right.
mean, other than the and I wouldn't say iMovies are particularly quick. I mean, the M1 chip is pretty dope. As for someone who is like a technological
Right.
Luddite, it is still I do know that I'm like, damn, that's
Hmm.
fucking other than that, I don't actually and I'm listening to a book on Steve Jobs right now. And the more I'm getting through it, and I've been thinking, I'm like, fucking cocksucker. I actually don't know why I use Apple. And his entire thing is like, he's like, it's got to be fast, it's got to be quick. He's like, most people have no idea what a computer is, just make it sexy. And I'm realizing it like 20 years into Apple products, I'm like, I don't actually know why I use it. And it's
Well, it's funny.
kind of
I have
brilliant.
I have a Mac Mini for work that we bought, for work, and part of Dexter White's the agreement was I wouldn't put Zoom on the iMac or on the Mac Mini because it's China, because in his opinion it's Chinese malware. I don't disagree with him. So I do all my podcasting from my Windows laptop, which has its own problems. So if we're gonna have the Chinese sending my data, it should be all of the stuff on my laptop, I guess, as opposed to the Mac. But either way, it's fine. It's just one of those things like the Mac is, we keep it as clean as possible for that stuff. I put very little software on that machine. I just use it that way, and it's fine. It is what it is. But I'll be honest with you, I don't. I tried. We tried moving over to Pages for me to write the newsletter in, and we found out that it doesn't translate very well and into its own, like it's like it it's a weird
There,
thing. Like, still a lot of things within the whole Apple architecture that doesn't work. And I'll be honest with you, I having used both operating systems, I I despise so much of the technological back end under Windows. I know, because I know it's crap, but I'll be honest with you, like the interface, which is not an application centric interface, but rather a file and directory centered interface, is just so much easier to navigate.
mm,
Like I am so far removed from the directory or direct, the file based or the application based, sorry, interface that Apple still really kind of enforces. Um, that I just don't find it convenient at all. When I sit down, I really literally run like the entire Windows machine from an Explorer window. Like, I can do everything I need to do from within an Explorer window, and like one or two of them, and then the applications themselves, as they come up, and then you shut them down. And so I'm constantly fighting whenever I work on the Mac. I'm constantly fighting that. I love my iPhone. Like, I absolutely adore
yeah.
my iPhone. I think my iPhone is great. But and I like I have an iPhone and an iPad, and they're great. So I'm kind of like between two worlds here. Like, there's certain things I do in certain parts of my workflow are in Windows, and certain parts of my workflow are in Mac. And what's interesting is, of course, you texted me the link for this podcast. You realize that I have to then take that, email the link to myself so that I can log in, which is fine because I don't have my text coming through my Windows box, right?
No, no, that
Which,
you're so many people ask me, they're always just like, hey, can you email this to me instead? And in my
yeah,
mind, I'm always like, fucking boomers. But it's until you just said that, I realized, oh wait, it's probably because they're not on a fucking iPhone, and I'm
right.
just a
If they're not
cunt.
using if they're not using a Mac, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm just
it would be actually normal, like, and it would make perfect sense if I did it that way. But you know, for Zoom, I can't. I can't do it. So,
and
and
for everybody listening, we will get to Fort Knox. But right now, kill yourself if you don't like this because I'm enjoying this. I mean, it makes me think of I took German in college because I thought it would be funny to be able to like literally I thought it'd be funny to just yell like Hitler better. And I guess a biology major, I lived in Georgia. People are like, it's more applicable to take Spanish, and I was like, fuck you. Like, I don't. This is my country. But I did want to learn German. I don't know what that says about me. But I remember I would just fail every fucking test. And I was a straight
hmm,
A, magna cum laude, ace the MCAT, got into medical school.
right,
I just looked at language as just I had to do it. And to me, it was more like big picture. I was like, why does it matter that I don't know, like, instead of saying, like, my name is Tommy, it's like, my name was Tommy. I'm like, why does it matter? If I'm in, somebody would know what I'm saying. And
right,
like, and I remember finally my professor pulled me aside. They're like, yeah, but the purpose of the entrance level course is not big picture. It is for the minutia.
right.
And I went, like in chemistry, if you got the fifth significant digit wrong, they didn't care. You balanced the equation. You understood the task. You fucked up a
Right.
digit, whatever. You understood and as we're talking, I was going to say, there's such a premium on like what you I've been on an iPhone forever, and what exists persists. So and we'll get to gold with that. But on an iPhone, it's like I've just been using it forever. And I'm like, well, what
Mhm.
other reason other than conformity? And it's like, yeah, no, that like it's like, no, no, that is I'm not doing quantum entanglement research. I want something that I can not think twice about. It's thumb, swipe, movement, motion, and they kind of have you on that where it's like, why does Coca-Cola
Yeah.
still advertise? So there's no buyer's regret. Same with Mercedes. Like, you already
Right.
have the product. Why do you need the ads? And it's so you don't regret it. Yeah, I'm like that is all. Like, why do I give a fuck like what it's capable of and what not? It's comfort.
Yeah, I for me, having used everything, like I was a Windows Phone guy for a while because I really, and then when that finally died, I bought a cheap because I was, when I finally moved over, I was during those periods of instability, um, and so I just had, all I could really afford was a cheap Android phone, and I had cheap Android phones forever, and then they weren't really advancing, and eventually, we got to a point where I'm like, I could afford to buy an iPhone. I bought a good one. And at the time, I bought an XR. At the time, it was like 2018. And I'm like, oh, I don't have to struggle anymore. Like the iPhone I was struggling. My smartphone per uh, experience to that point was awful. Like, working with $100 phones. So I'm like, and I finally just bought a $750 iPhone, which lasted me 5 years. And I'm like, I was changing my other phones out every 18 months. I'm like, this is actually in the long run, this is actually cheaper to just, and now I'm like, and after 5 years, the screen finally cracked and then locked up on my XR. I'm like, I'm not going to get it fixed. It's in my it's in a box somewhere. And I just went and bought a 14 that night. I didn't even think twice about it. Like there was a 14 at the local Best Buy. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that one. I don't give a shit. And I'll use it for 3 years or 4 years. I don't care. And to me, like then for the phone, like the Apple and pads, like I have no tablets. I have zero problem giving Apple their money. Um, but um, but for computers, I still have a real issue. Like we're getting to the point now where their computers are actually, in terms of performance for dollar, they're getting close to what you can get in the Windows world. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, Tommy, is that um, my main gaming box is a little Ryzen mini computer, like one of those little B-Link things
Yeah,
that are like this
I have one
big.
of the, I
I
have
have
one of
one of
those.
those. Those like SCR9s, and like fuck, it runs World of Warcraft at 14.4 at 120 frames a second with all the juice turned on. I'm like,
That's
are
my
you kidding? I
streaming
mean,
one. Yeah,
yeah, and I mean that's all I play. I play that in Guild Wars 2. I don't play anything else. So what do I give a shit? Or yeah, on the rare occasion, Guild Wars 1. And I could run that in a VM on my iPad for fuck's sake, and it would run well. But that's it. And even World of Warcraft retail runs at 14.4 at reasonable rates, which is a much higher resource requirement. I don't play AAA games like that. I give a shit. So, because most AAA games are shit,
the
and
dog
especially
shit.
going back and playing World of Warcraft Classic, I'm like, this game's still fucking great 20 years later. It's even better today, I think, than it was then because the gaming industry is so fucking crap now.
Another thing is like when I first when I moved home in 2016 because my life was in the fucking gutter and I was a loser. I started just teaching myself Photoshop on an iPhone 4, and
Mm,
it was like when Trump was first getting elected. It was a couple years after my brother died, and I was just in a horrible place, and I moved home. So I was just making memes all day. Really, that's what I was doing. I was a
mm-hmm,
real fucking fat piece of shit, and I was doing that, and then after like a year of that, I actually started to like Photoshop, and my dad bought me an iPad and was like, "Go fucking make something of this." And I taught myself like 12 hours a day. That's all I did, and just using an iPad on like the simplest, cheapest Photoshop, going from a phone, kind of a couple fingers maybe, to having a stylus, being able to go
mm-hmm.
through, but still being able to hold the stylus and use your hands and move it around and everything. And then after a couple years of that, I went to a laptop which had even, more power, could handle even more layers in a Photoshop. Instead of a limit of 10, the limit was like 200. Instead of
Right.
limited at 8K, you could do file sizes to like satellite size. But it was on a trackpad, and I couldn't make shit because I didn't have the free flowing of just zipping around and moving and putting this here and putting that there and using all 10 fingers. I wonder, and when I would go to a laptop, I'd be like, this is dog shit. And then I go back to an iPad and I'd be like, this is incredible. I
Right.
wonder how much of that is going to happen again with something like Neuralink, which I'm never going to get because I just it seems like the end of
Oh
free
yeah.
will. But for other people, I'm very curious to see what it does to them. I wonder if that's what it is just removing another barrier to entry of
Yeah. Yeah.
in that you might be like, oh yeah, don't even worry about hands. Like you think of a smell and that changes how something looks. I wonder if
Yeah.
that's what it really is, just opening like the bandwidth of connection to
Maybe.
the machine. I have
Maybe.
no idea.
But I don't know. I mean, the older I get though, the more I find myself like we have all these as a amateur musician, I find myself, looking at all the tools that are available to like make music, with digital tools and whatnot. I find it just completely uninteresting. And I have to get back to like, You need to,
Yeah.
muscles and engaging the entire brain and, you know, really having to, it's like working out. Like you have to
Yeah.
work, you're working really small muscles, but you're still working out small muscle. Like when I was waiting for you, you texted me and you're like, I'm gonna be 5 minutes late. I'm like, cool, that's 5 minutes with the finger exercises because I
Yeah.
really need to work on my, so I just took 10 minutes
Just
and I did
yeah.
some finger exercises and some picking exercises on the guitar because I'm a shit guitar player. So, but 10 minutes every day of doing 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there, just doing that stuff. And just, got my Telecaster sitting right next to me and you can practically see it. Like I just, pick it up and like keep like trying to get better a little bit every day. If there's nothing else, and to keep, especially as I get older and my hands get stiffer and whatnot, it's just to keep things, flowing. And then every once in a while, you get a chance at the end of the day or whatever to spend 45 minutes in front of an amplifier and just, plug some pedals together and, it's like start making some noise. And to be honest with you, it is fun and it's a good form of therapy. And I don't think we'll ever get rid of that. We'll never make music with our mind, right?
No.
We'll never,
We
and
could.
it
It'll be dog shit though.
has to be a full body experience.
Well, even using using AI prompts and shit. Like when I look
Mm-hmm.
at that now, my first thought was like, I'm so happy I don't do Photoshop anymore. I'm like, that is the fucking automobile to the horse and buggy. Just in terms of like cheap shit, not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
genuine works of art. I
right,
mean, cheap shit. When people be like, hey, can you make me a card for my baby shower? That
sure,
shit is just it couldn't complete not partially. It is completely outsourced and just depleted by AI. You just go into it. I
yep,
could probably do it with thumbnails. Tom Luongo do that. Fort Knox discussion. The economy Trump and just get a thumbnail. And yeah, that will be automated. But in terms of the actual like sincere personal creations as well as the personal experience of making,
mm-hmm.
I don't think will ever be replaced. But I will say it is, playing on the because like a podcast. Ultimately, there's only so much you gotta have a good microphone. You have like a decent camera. You can't be like too echoey. Ultimately, though, if you don't show up, put in the hours, have good
Mm-hmm.
guests, do it, build a community, put out regular content, always be fine honing it, put your best foot, blah, 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 blah. Nothing you do will matter. Doesn't matter how good your fucking studio is. And man, that's
Nope.
kind of a brilliant thing, though, from retailers to be like, yeah, but a lot of retards do think if they just get a better microphone, they'll be Joe Rogan. And that I kind of tip my hat to the capitalists. They're like, no, 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 no. Like I'm fine with the iMac. I don't need like a $90,000 Mac Pro, but I'm sure there's someone that's like my podcast would really go to the next level
Yeah.
if I had a Mac Pro
Well,
that cost more
It's
than
the
a
same thing
Bentley.
with It's the same thing with music. It's the same thing with writing or with anything else. Like, you can make great music on a $200 Telecaster. Like,
Yeah.
it's what's in your hands and what's in your heart and what's in your head and it's bringing that out. You can make everything else work. I got news for you. You can take a $200 Telecaster with a couple of pedals and a cheap amplifier, and all of a sudden you sound in the right amplifier, and you can sound like freaking.
Yeah.
If
Like with this,
if you got the solo Stevie Ray Vaughan, you're going to come through, dude. Like it's just going to happen.
it's like with the
If you
special
don't,
forces.
well, whatever however good your ideas are, no matter how much money you spend, like the buying gear is a coping mechanism. It's
Yeah.
not a,
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's not a substitute for actual work.
no, I mean, I think about like, like Dale, the Delta Force guy, he's just fucking killer. And he's like the really good guns. He's like, they're nice and they're fun. He's like, man, a $300 AR and a heart full of hate. He's like, you'll do so much more than $2 million of thermal scopes
Sure,
and no, no, no.
I
He's like,
know.
he's like, I've literally gone into other countries with guns where the pieces are rusting. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter if you know what you're doing. You know where to apply pressure. It
yeah,
makes no fucking difference.
right,
Speaking of Delta Force assassins that are going to kill us, I would say, it is kind of fucking surreal that they're openly talking about going to Fort Knox. Like,
not really in my mind.
for me, it is. And I'm psyched, but it does just kind of seem surreal that he didn't get his head blown off, the election wasn't stolen, and they're just slashing USAID. These
Yep.
Marines to the. I know, like I love it. It's the best possible thing. There is still like a little bit of a shock of it to me. It just seems like
Yeah.
It just seems like a wet dream from 20 years ago. Like, yeah, what if the president said we're gonna live stream going into Fort Knox? You'd be like, that'd be great, but I don't think he wants to get candidate. But it's happening.
It
So
is.
I don't fucking.
I know
That's all I have to input in this. The rest of the
well, I
show's
was going to say,
yours.
Tommy, it is. You know, I'll be honest with you, and I've said this in now at least half a dozen podcasts. I'm like, you know, 20% of what we've already seen. If he gotten that done in 4 years, I would have been happy.
Yeah.
The fact that like every day we're accelerating, he's trying to accelerate the pace. Tells me that we're not in Kansas anymore. It's a different world. I was listening to an episode of Pete Canonius' podcast the other day. I was on with Pete on Wednesday, and he directed me to an episode that he wanted me to listen to about. It was on with a hedge fund guy. I can't remember his name. And Dotson, I think the last name the guy's name was. But they started talking about Trump's negotiating style because the guy has been in the room with Trump and I didn't hear anything from him that I hadn't heard from other people who've been in the room with Trump. But it was illuminating. But I wound up listening to the whole podcast because it was really, Pizza said, just listen to the first 15 minutes just to get an idea of it. I wanted to listen to the whole thing. And, one of the things they brought up during that podcast, which is really, really trenchant, which is that the era of consensus politics is over.
What does that word mean? Trenchant?
Just, on point.
Okay.
Trenchant,
Gotcha.
important, trenchant, like weighty, right? It's really important is that the era of consensus politics is over and that power politics has returned. And Donald Trump understands power politics, just like Putin understands power politics. Putin even had to give up consensus politics. Eventually, he tried up until it became obvious that people in Europe really weren't. They were mouthing the words that they wanted consensus politics, but what they really were practicing were power politics. And this whole idea of consensus, well, the science is settled, science says this, it's all variations on the same thing. Like, we're all going to come together and we're going to agree that this is the best practice, and then we're just going to do that, right? No, I have leverage, fuck you, this is what we're doing. That's the way the world actually works. And Donald Trump has just ripped the veil off of this veneer of that. That's not the way the world actually works. And a lot of people haven't made the shift yet. Certainly the guys on Capitol Hill haven't figured it out. The European Union hasn't figured it out yet because they're still acting as if, oh no, we're supposed to have consensus. We're all supposed to sit at the table. If we're going to sit down and negotiate the end of the war in Ukraine, we get to be a part of this because it's consensus. It's part because we're party of the table. Like, no, you're not. You're the fucking warmongers that started this damn thing. Trump just exposed you all for that. And JD Vance just called you all a bunch of fucking Nazis, and we're done. That's it. We're negotiating a settlement because you people had your chance to negotiate a settlement, but you don't like the settlement that's on the table. So you think you're going to use us to fight your war for you because that's what the consensus has been. No. How about no? And so I'm not at all surprised that Trump is open to the idea of auditing Fort Knox. I'm not, or the Fed or anything else. And I'll be honest with you. And I think it actually comports people, I think it actually comports with the stuff that I've been saying for a long time, which is the following, right? Which is the whole argument about the Fed and, now acting in a sovereigntist way as opposed to a globalist way. Like, I don't actually think that Jerome Powell would mind an audit of the Fed because what's he going to find out? What are we going to find out? That Powell did everything he could to defend the United States and couldn't, and that all the real perfidy happened under Bernanke and Yellen. And at the same time, I also think that they all really want a reform of the Federal Reserve System. Trump wants it. I think Powell actually wants it as well. Okay. And that the Fed's going to survive this and be put into a different form, but you can't reform the Fed until we audit the Fed and then find out this is what we need to do to make sure that the Fed never does any of the things that it's been doing or that it did do in the past ever again. And how can the Fed now support the new monetary system that Trump is trying to put in place? That's what I think is happening there. And I think the auditing of Fort Knox is the same thing. My point being is that I don't think in any way, manner, shape, or form we're going to find out that I don't think there's any. Let me say it differently. The gold's there. I became convinced that the gold was there ages ago. Okay, I'm at the point now of believing that the U.S. is the whole narrative of the U.S. is broken, the $36 trillion in debt, and the blah 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 blah. I think it's all British psyop. I think it's all British and European psyop, and I'll tell you why. Because I started really thinking about like how to recapitalize the United States. I've been thinking about what Besant is talking about. I've been thinking about the sovereign wealth fund. We just published a big podcast with Vince Lanci and Eric Jung talking about what's happening in the gold market and other knock-on effects from that. And it's just been rattling around in my head. I'm like, Besant said at his confirmation hearing, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. Echoing the words of Jerome Powell for the last 3 years. There's a limit to what monetary policy can achieve if you don't get spending under
Under
control on
control.
Capitol Hill, right? So so now thinking about the United States like you would a company, and you've got your financial statements, you've got your income statement, you've got your balance sheet, and you've got your cash flow statement, right? Well, if you balance the cash flow, then the income statement gets fixed. You start to look, we bring in this much money, we spend this much money, this is how much money we made. And then that translates into cash flow after it's gone through the balance sheet and depreciation and paying dividends and all this other stuff and adjusting everything for debt and working capital and all that crap, which I kind of only partially understand. But once you fix those two, then it's a balance sheet problem. And what's the balance sheet? It's just a statement of assets and liabilities. And when you really stop to think about the United States and you start to think about all these regulations and all of this bullshit and all of these things that this administrative state that we've been living under, what's been the goal? Like at the strategic level, what's been the goal of all that? Well, it's to write all of the assets of the United States down as far as possible, to keep them off the balance sheet,
Mm.
tied up in so for example, Anwar, right? All the oil reserves under Anwar locked away for environmental reasons. That means you've written trillions of dollars worth of
You
assets
don't have.
down to zero. Same thing with X, Y, Z, all of these things. And so now, what's Besant saying? What he said the day that they, signed the executive order for the sovereign wealth fund, he said we're going to monetize the balance sheet of the United States. Now, there's a number of ways of doing that. So, my point here is that maybe the United States isn't broke. Maybe it's just given the parameters that we've been allowed to operate under, all of our assets have been written to zero, and we've been having to create all this debt to finance our operations, which is all a lie, promulgated by a bunch of fucking globalist Democrats and globalists and Democrats working for them and Republicans trying to literally destroy the country. And Trump's just like, oh, by the way, that's a lie too, along with we don't have any gold at Fort Knox. We don't have this. We don't have this. We don't have that. When the reality is, like always with these friggin' people, the reality is that the Bank of England is the one that doesn't have any fucking gold.
Because
They're the
I'm
ones that don't have any gold. They're the ones that leased all the freaking gold out or sold it or did whatever they could because they don't have it because they've been selling it out to support the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association, for all these years. And they're the ones that have actually been suppressing the price of gold, not the Federal Reserve. And
question.
we got sold this. And now, again, this is my speculation. And if we audit Fort Knox and we find out that the gold is all there, or as Brent Johnson's put out, there's even more gold there than we say that we even
That's
cop
what
to.
that's what my buddy
Now
thinks.
what?
Yeah, my buddy
Wouldn't
Ian.
that be fucking hilarious?
Yeah, my buddy Ian Burlingame. He's a fan of yours. But he said that he goes, I think it's there and that there's way more. Um, but explain for me because I'm functionally retarded. Like I think and most people understand and suspect that just the vast general idea of you can't take the U.S. geographically or militarily, so you have to implode it from the inside. Okay, that
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a broad communist long march to the institutions. Blah 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 blah.
Sure.
Administrative state. Get it, got it, good. For me, just gut reflexive response. I would say that keeping things off the balance, however you paraded. It's climate change. It's the oil's gay. Like whatever you say to me, that would, if you told me, I would, my first response would be like, that is a pro-American thing. You're keeping the goods off the balance sheets that no one else knows about. You're saying that's bad. Bridge the two to me. Because you remember the things back in like all the elections where they'd go onto the street and they would tell some Republican an Obama policy and they'd say it's Romney's and he'd go, I like it. And they go, it's actually Obama's. And they go, oh shit. And then vice versa. If somebody just told, if Trump told me that they were keeping all that shit off the books, I would go, that's for America. So that's where like my rationally I go. Now
Okay.
again, I'm
And
functionally retarded. So
no,
it's
no,
fine.
you're not. No, you're not. And actually, that was a that was the I think that was part of the policy back in the 90s, right? Certainly under Clinton, but at the same time, that would be fine if we weren't running a 7% of the GDP budget deficit every year. See, if we weren't running a massive, unsustainable budget deficit over, you know, decades, then, if we were just like writing all the assets down to zero and letting everybody else spend it, again, there's two parts actually to what you just described. One, you're assuming that it's a Malthusian world, that oil is not, that oil is a very finite, that is approximately finite resource. I mean approximately meaning we're going to run out of oil in 20 years or 30 years, or we're going to run out of oil before we have a replacement technology
I,
for energy, which
I
is
wouldn't even I
bullshit.
wouldn't even assume that. I would just say just strategically, we're not letting anyone know we have it.
Sure. And that makes some sense if we weren't at the same time pursuing other policies that hollowed out the other assets of our, if we were bringing other assets in and we were keeping the manufacturing up and we were doing all, and then yeah,
And then keeping
then
that
that would make
quiet in the
right, that is strategically valid. What we were doing was exactly the opposite, and then trying to bring the country to a political, social, economic, and cultural crisis that created the 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 milieu for civil war. Now, whose MO is that fucking bullshit?
creators of
Oh,
war.
that would be the British. It's only been going on for 300 fucking years.
I was gonna say, and the
Ask the
Swedes.
Chinese, ask the Indians, ask this one, ask that one, ask the Ottomans, ask the Russians, ask everybody, ask the Germans.
I was gonna say CIA.
So hey, City of London, go fuck yourself. We're doing it to you now.
Hmm. The return of
That's what's
power.
happening.
Well, I also think what you said earlier that you return of power politics. It's actually it's more so that the veil is. It's always been that. It's just that the veil is right. It's the veil of
Right.
right. Society is 4 meals away from anarchy. Right. It's the veil
Mm-hmm.
of civil. I'll hold the door or fucking hold the elevator for somebody if I'm leaving the gym and I'm coming back up. Oh, I got a show with Tom in 20 minutes. If I haven't eaten in a couple of days, I'm gonna beat that woman to death and put her in an oven and the veil of civility. And I saw that last night, the fucking Zelensky thing where he was like we need or he, no he's like we're gonna get he didn't say we need he said we're demanding $250 billion from the United States and they will not bring us to the negotiating table and make us only listen and not speak. And the top comment was the US can and will. That's how the world works. That's what it is. So it's not that it's not that you were saying that, but it's not that it's back. It's the veil of civility. Everything's fine and functioning. Society falls apart, and you go to the grocery store, and there's a National Guard fucking barricade around it, and you go, "Oh, that was always planned. I see it now."
Yeah, yeah. No, you're and Zelensky is he is just mouthing the words by his actual masters. And the truth of the matter is that the UK and apparently BlackRock, from what I understand, they've signed all these deals to buy all
Reconstruction.
the assets in Ukraine and then rebuild it. And that was how the UK was going to get out of this. And they were going to use all of Russia's assets, and they were going to. This is what they were going to do. And this is why Keir Starmer's, coming over to Washington next week. And I love the way Trump handled this. He's like, someone asked him, Did you see the press conference on this? He was at the Oval Office signing executive orders, and someone asked him, "It's like, so what are you and Prime Minister Starmer going to talk about next week?" He's like, "I don't know. He's the one who asked for the meeting. I don't have anything to say to him."
Zip.
Like I don't know. He asked for the meeting. I
Fuck
have a
that
distinct
faggot.
feeling it's going. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. I think Mr. Starmer is going to walk in with some of these. Again, British love to do this. They force people. They get people to sign secret deals, or on the down low. I'm sure that there are arrangements and agreements between the United States and the UK government or the crown that we don't know anything about. And I'll bet you Trump may not even know about some of them. And I bet you that at this moment in time, this is when Starmer's going to come in and go, look, you're going to do this because of X, Y, and Z, and we're going into Ukraine, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it because you have these agreements with us. And if you don't, then we're going to do this. And in the past, the British were always able to make that good because they controlled the forex markets and they controlled credit spreads and everything else. They don't control that shit
No,
anymore.
it's
And so Starmer is going to walk in to Trump and he's going to put this crap on the table. And Trump's going to go look at him and go, that's nice. I didn't sign any of that. Get the fuck out of my office.
well, it's also if it's fucking secret and off the books, the underside of it is you can't enforce that, right? I mean, if you're doing an off the books like black ops operation, and you get like that's like so
I
like the
like
guy.
I'm just speculating. I think there are like secret agreements of land transfers or this or that or this government of 1871 thing that keeps floating around that we actually are owned. Our government's actually owned by the crown, and that's which I don't buy any of that shit. And even
It's
if it's
so fun
true,
though.
let's assume that it's true. Do
It's
you
so
think Trump
fucking
is going to
fun.
honor that fucking thing? Are you
Absolutely.
kidding me?
He Trump would tweet like an old 400-year-old like
Yeah,
piece of parchment like verifying the Illuminati. He'd be like, it says here a bunch of Saturn worshiping faggots run the country. I don't think so. Like he would hold up like an old thing written in children's blood the same way he would an executive order. He'd be like, it says here that the Dark Lord has principalities over this earth. We're not doing that. Like he would just do that and tweet it, and
exactly.
Elon would retweet it and just with like he'd say amazing and like
Yeah, I know. Well, this is the fun. This
bunch
is
of
the thing.
fags and
Like, guys,
cloaks drinking blood, very un-American.
it's very un-American. Yeah,
Never seen a
I'm
pedophile,
not
never
doing
seen
that
a
anymore.
non-pedophile drink blood. I mean,
No,
he
it's really
would.
funny. So I honestly, I used to be one of these people who thought that there was no gold in Fort Knox. And I remember and this is ages ago. This is before Gold Goats and Guns. This is probably back when I worked during my first stint for Newsmax. It's a conversation that took place so long ago that at one point Dexter White and I were just on the phone together, and he was just like the gold is there. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Have we leased it out? Sure, maybe. I'm not going to argue with you about it for whatever reason. Fine. But when push comes to shove and they actually go to claim it, do you really think we're going to give it up?
No,
No.
no.
Like that's because he's like, that's the way the world actually works. And I'm like,
Physical ownership.
damn it, you're right. Like, and at that point, I had to stop and really think about things from that perspective. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Never
Yeah.
mind.
No,
Moving on.
I have no doubt we've probably leased the same bar of gold to 80 different countries in over 80. I have
At
no
one
doubt
point,
I have no doubt we've done that. I truly believe it's on US soil in a fucking
mhm,
bunker because that's real ownership. You
yeah.
don't.
And it's the same thing. And it's the same thing with, you know, and what's funny now is that with the United States, this is one of the things that Vince and Eric and I talked about the other day, is it's the US doing the margin call on the Bank of England and the LBMA and the gold market. Now, we've been speculating in the hard money space, nominally the libertarian space, the hard money space for over 20 years that it was going to be the United States and the COMEX that was going to be revealed to be the ones who, were going to get bankrupted over this. And that was always the thought. And if you go back and I've been in that community, both publicly and privately for over 20 years. Like, so when I was, when I was just a private citizen, for all intents and purposes, toiling away in my laboratory, I used to believe all this shit. Now, no one ever thought that it would be the United States that turns around and goes, you know what? We're remonetizing gold.
Yeah.
No one ever thought that. And that still hasn't percolated through the minds of so many people in the commentary, in financial commentary and political commentary space yet. I reached that conclusion a few years ago. It's just part of the reason why I remember saying, I think I probably said it on one of the episodes of the Bald Ones or whatever. I was like, look, at some point someone's going to remonetize gold. The first group to do it is going to force everybody else to do it, because gold is the only, because realistically in this world, gold is the only money good collateral out there. Like, that's just the truth of the matter. Bitcoin is nice, but no one believes in Bitcoin. The
No.
governments still believe in gold. So until the governments start believing in Bitcoin, then we could use Bitcoin as money good collateral. But as of right now, it's still gold. Doesn't matter. I don't care if you believe in math. Bitcoin actually shut the fuck up. You don't matter.
The
This
fact
is
that
power
gold is
politics
found in
again.
the pharaoh tombs is all I need. I'm like, yeah, no, what exists will persist.
Right. And so this is and I said, well, if the Russians try to monetize gold and they're successful at it, or the BRICS try to remonetize gold, that's going to force the Americans to do it. Now they haven't made that point yet, but they've threatened it enough that, come on, let's not kid ourselves. Why wouldn't the United States think in terms of remonetizing gold? And and of course, who would argue that? And so at this point, you have to be careful of any commentator at this point talking down the central role of gold as collateral in the financial system, because that means that
They're an
they have
instrument
to
of,
be still either beholden intellectually to the current model, or are actually working
well, yeah.
for the old system. We have to come to either of those conclusions about the particular person at the table, who's talking to you at this point. And I'm sorry, it's like that's the way it is. Like, gold is going to get remonetized and revalued, and it's going to be a lot higher price than it currently has to be. And anybody who tells you there's not enough gold in the world to liquefy the system, I say, that's nice. You don't understand that everything is about price. The supply and demand is always at a particular is determined at the margin at a particular price. Price moves, supply and demand curves change. The old supply and demand curves that you learn in Econ 101, supply for quantity, that thing it's like equilibrium in chemistry. It's a snapshot of a moment in time. It doesn't really exist. Okay. The only system, or just to let's bring this down to brass tacks and understand what I mean when I invoke chemistry. The only systems in chemistry, meaning the interactions of matter, that are in equilibrium are at absolute zero,
Hmm.
because then there's no
No,
movement,
yeah,
there's no transfer of energy.
it's dead.
Guess what? We don't live in as cold as it is in Florida this morning. It's not absolute zero. Therefore, we're not at equilibrium. Equilibrium is a concept, it's a construct, and it's an assumption used to derive the equations of water chemistry and electrochemistry and everything else. But it's an assumption, and that assumption is fundamentally invalid. At any moment in time, yeah, you might approach equilibrium, but you understand that all of this is about all of these systems, are about the way these the constructs, the mathematical constructs, are all about how these systems change, which is why all of physics and all of chemistry and all of that and all of those the physical sciences is governed by calculus and not algebra. Because if we were at equilibrium, it'd all be algebra. But it's not. It's about calculus, which is the mathematics of how systems change with respect to a variable, which in this case would be time, or it could be temperature, or it could be pressure, or it could be, I don't know, purple hair dye. I don't give a fuck. It's, df versus dx, x being whatever variable you want, and understanding at a conceptual level that that's what we're dealing with. So it's the same thing with, so at every level, we're talking about no system here is at equilibrium. And there are no, and nothing is ceteris paribus, or all things being equal. That's never the thing. Systems are constantly in motion; they're constantly changing. So
Yeah, it's kind of a retarded thing to say you don't have enough gold. I mean, that's like That's like if I pulled up Google Earth on my phone, and you're like, that phone, it's not big enough to see everything. It's like, yeah, you zoom in. You don't fucking need to see it all at once. It changes. It's a value holder. Do you think the people that are, yeah, because the people that are downplaying it, and that'd be like publishing a bunch of news stories in the early 40s and be like, man, what is uranium? Fucking most worthless shit ever. Like that's what you would do if you were trying to create a super weapon and win the war. You'd be like, fucking that shit's
Of
so
course.
gay and stupid. Like that's what you would do. And it makes sense. Do you think then they're doing that because they truly know the value of gold? They're like, hey, tell everyone it's nothing. Well, we buy up as much as we can.
I think that yes, if you want to collateralize the the balance sheet of the United States and collateralize a new domestic currency, well, then you have to control as much gold as possible. Because at the end of the day, as Vince Lanci so succinctly puts it, mercantilism is returning, meaning protection, capital controls around each individual country, and there will be conduits and through which capital will flow, but they will be controlled,
Hmm.
right? And the value of the currency and the value of the goods moving across political borders are going to be tightly controlled and tightly um, um, regulated. So, this is why we have to repatriate any gold that we may have leased out, and it's why we have to bring in as much as we possibly can. Right? I know. I mean, I hear reports from different people about something like any given year, anywhere from 800 to 1,000 tons of gold that are produced go missing. Like there's the World Gold Council numbers that are published as to how much the central banks own and how much they think has been produced. And then there's the total of what the mining industry actually produces. And then there are the bullshit numbers that the Chinese publish. And then there's the bullshit numbers that the Russians publish. And then, what I mean? Like
Well, then
we don't know how much they're
what is
producing.
all what
And
electric?
we know none of that gold leaves their borders. We don't know where it went.
They're just moving it off the books.
It's off the books, or it's stuck in the sovereign wealth funds of these countries somewhere. Remember, the Russians have a very, very large sovereign wealth fund.
I was gonna say, or it's got some technological. I mean, it's fucking the irony of ironies. My Jewish friend, but he was telling me he's like, I don't know, there's over 500 ounces of silver in the nose cone of a cruise missile. So like, I mean, it could be that there's applications that we don't really to where you would look at it, not it just so happens to also be a value of wealth, but you might start to look at it as you would I don't know, uranium or like carbon nanotubes or something where you'd be like, oh, that actually has a value that's far more than its, whatever, $2,800 an ounce. Because if you do, whatever, the room temperature, superconducting, dog shit, like maybe it has 1,000-fold value or something.
Maybe, but I
No
don't
idea.
think. I think in gold's case, I think its primary uses as collateral for a monetary system. Silver, on the other hand, I think has so many industrial uses. And you just brought it up that this is why I don't consider silver a monetary metal. I think silver's primary um, value is in industry at this point, like copper is, or
Yeah.
as a replacement for copper at the high end of the industrial of the electronics industry and whatnot. And for that reason alone, silver is never going to be remonetized because the competing demand for silver as an industrial commodity is just too high. And I just default back to Mises's regression theorem on this, and until proven wrong, which I'm having a hard time believing that Mises's regression theorem will ever be proven wrong, because it's a good model for how commodities become money. Now, again, then you can broaden the definition of commodities, and the Bitcoiners would certainly do that into digital assets. And I personally have no problem with this. Other people do. That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. And you're entitled to be wrong, or more importantly, you're entitled to watch the system decide, the market decide what is and is not reality. And you can deny reality all you want, but that doesn't matter. If the market chooses that that digital assets will trade alongside commodities as real assets, alongside real assets that you can touch, um, then they did. And you can complain about it all you want, Peter Schiff, but it doesn't matter. You're wrong, and you need to like get with the reality, get with the program, or choose not to, and
There's a there's a
be
lack
wrong.
there's a lack of humility. I'm not saying that, paradigms don't change. They obviously do. If a paradigm currently exists, that means at one time it didn't, and meaning it can change. I get that.
Right.
There is a bit of a lack of humility or narcissism in thinking that it's all changing now. Like to me, that would always help me not black pill. Is I'd be like, am I really convinced that the entire world, through every tumultuous upturn and church schism and fucking new world discovery and planetary motion and world war, I'm like, am I really convinced that it's just coming to an end in old Tommy Carrigan's life? And one day it will. It's like if you wake up and tell yourself every day today is the last day of my life. One day you'll be right, but most likely not. It is. It seemed maybe a little like egocentric to be like we're watching the fall of gold and the rise of Bitcoin. Like really now? I'm not saying it couldn't and won't happen one day, but it's like now from fucking pharaohs making sarcophagus masks out of gold to it's in the fucking Bible to
Well,
now, and it's like, and now it's falling under Donald. It seems a little like it's kind of main character syndrome. Like it's
it
happening in
feels
my
like,
life.
yeah, it feels like a it you're right. It feels a little solipsistic, right? It
Yeah,
really does.
yeah. It's all
Like you're
happening now.
it's all happening in your version of the universe,
It's the center of me.
not
Yeah.
not in the real world, right? And these are ideas, and I'm not saying that not saying that the ideas don't propagate and become reality. Of course they do. Okay. Um, but at the same time, that reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away.
Hmm.
Therefore, you know, I'm not saying that, for example, I'm not saying Bitcoin's not moving towards the monetary system. I'm not saying that Bitcoin's not doesn't have strategic value. I think it has tremendous strategic value. If
Sure.
Trump is talking about an energy dominance plan, and I don't know if you saw the guts of that executive order, it was immense. If you look at it, it's very clear that Bitcoin, knowing how Bitcoin mining
Where
works,
it's
it
primarily
makes perfect sense that it would be part of that strategic plan to smooth out the cost of electricity generation, because Bitcoin feeds on the electricity that we use to keep the entire electrical grid pressurized
Bitcoin.
during off peak hours. Bitcoin it's a great way to tokenize
Bitcoin's Mother
literally
Nature's way.
wasted energy.
Bitcoin's Mother Nature's way of saying, don't, you're not doing this renewable shit. You got to keep going. There needs to be a
Mm-hmm.
drive for electricity. Oh, your
Yeah,
cars run better now? Here's a new gold that you can create from electricity. It's like, motherfucker.
yeah, yeah. And it's and as my friend John Seth said a long time ago, he's like, Bitcoin is an organism that eats energy subsidies,
Hmm.
right? And then so we get the real price of electricity, and we get and because because Bitcoin mining travels to where energy is cheapest, right? And so eventually it reveals the uneconomic um economic nature of subsidizing electricity generation, and eventually that has to go away, which is a good thing. But it also helps electricity producers themselves to have an alternate source of revenue when electricity demand is down. So now they're not wasting money pressurizing the grid, which the grid has to be pressurized at all times. And I mean, with include pressure being voltage,
Yeah.
right? You have to pressurize the electrical grid all 24/7, 365. Okay. And that means that 30% of the electricity that we generate goes to ground. Well, if we can tokenize a portion of that, then when people aren't using electricity,
Oh,
now you're talking about a way for the electricity generators to figure out a way to recoup that cost, and over the long term actually stabilize electricity prices in the long run relative to the cost of the fuel being used to pressurize the grid.
Really, all it just is all entropy.
Yes, it
God
is.
damn it! It really is.
God damn it! It's all that fucking second law of
It's
thermodynamics
just
bullshit now, isn't it?
it's just entropic faggotry. It really is. That's gonna be the name of my. That's gonna be the name of my band. Entropic faggotry.
That's a great band name. That really is. That's
I
a
like
fucking
it.
phenomenal band name that we're allowed to use now. It's the only worst. The only one better would be entropic retardation, right?
Entropic. I like entropic faggotry.
I do like entropic faggotry more. I
But it
will.
really, it really is like when you look at that, it really is just like a smoothing out of you're like motherfucker. It really is just like another manifestation of this. It's like the weird moment when you realize that like fire isn't something different in physics, and you're like, no, it's just enough matter that it implodes, and one of the things it gives off are a lot. But you're like, oh, that's just another planet that got so that's what happens. You're like, that's also just atoms. I know for me
Yes.
that was like oh, it's not some separate like that's the star and this is the Earth. It's like no, that was just a really big one, and then that's what happens is it falls
Mhm.
in on itself and as
Planets are just stars that didn't
and if you
ignite.
didn't,
You
yeah,
know
and
what I
if
mean?
if you didn't have eyes, you wouldn't. It would be no different to you. If you just had like a gravity detector, you'd be like, yeah, it's just a really big fucking planet.
Right,
That
right, right.
it took a moment of like, oh, it's just, oh, it just is entropy just unfolding. Which I feel like that you would just model entropy if you really wanted, if you really wanted just like a supercomputer to analyze the market, you would just say like find the predict the next step of entropy, or not even predict. You just say calculate. And
Yeah,
just wherever that goes.
possibly. Yeah, no, we're gonna have a. It's gonna be. It's This is where I'll be honest with you. I'm beginning to feel a little bit like a luddite as we move into this AI thing, and I'll be honest with you because I'm like, oh, look, the only way I actually use AI at this point is like to ask questions that I don't. I use now. I use like Grok, for example, because I know there's no information in Google anymore, right? So when I need to actually get a fact out of something close to a fact, I go to Grok and I say, okay, you know, and I ask a simple prompt. I don't have conversations with Grok, right? Or I ask it to make me an image so that I can have a hero image for the fucking podcast, for the latest podcast episode that I put together. I need this silly thing that I've got in my head and I can't draw it and I'm not going
Yeah.
to pay somebody for it. So can you please put this together for me? And eventually, after 4 or 5 iterations, I eventually get what I want. That's it. I'm not actually using it at this point to teach it anything or to have a conversation or having a conversation with my computer just like it seems odd, right?
Just put a
But
gun in your
when I,
mouth at that point.
what's that?
So
What's
at
that?
that point, just put a gun in your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. I've
That's what
always
you're
said
doing
that.
in your free time, and it's not like a
Oh man.
novelty. Like, oh, it's AI. Like, if you're doing
So,
that, I mean,
so
just
this is
put
my
the
hardcover copy.
357.
So this is my hardcover copy, very rare hardcover copy of Philip K. Dick's Ubik, right? And I have that. I don't have any other copy of Ubik anymore than like a digital copy. And I have that one because in Ubik, of course, it envisions a farcical world. In 1969, it was a farcical world where all the appliances were AI. Like they were all live and they all expected to be, um, paid for service. So you had to pay for the door. To use the door, you had to pay the door a nickel. Or to use your microwave, you had to pay it. Right. So I'm like, yeah, every time like I sit down and I think about having a conversation with Grok, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that because the day I'm living in Ubik and my fucking microwave asked me for 10 cents, and I expect my Amazon Cube at some point to literally ask me for money
Yep.
before it turns on at some point, and it will be Amazon that asks first. I'm at that I'm at that point because they want everything to be a service. But when that starts happening, that's it. I check out. I'm like moving. I'm not just moving to the hills. I'm like shutting everything down, and I'm going full. I'm going full back to nature, like nature boy. Like I'm done, and I probably won't survive very long because I'm not prepared for that at this point. But it's like that's it. I'm not doing it because I'm not living in that world. So I know that that's like the psychological block. I read Ubik at like 14, guys. Okay, like I've been worried about this fucking world since I'm a teenager, and because I didn't laugh. Like I was supposed to kind of laugh. This is a scene in Ubik, the first when we first meet the main character. he's so disorganized and so disheveled. He doesn't have the 5 cents necessary to open up the door to his apartment, to get down to his car, to get his testing equipment he needs to do his job.
to make
Okay. And he's literally having a fight with his door. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah, no,
it's hilarious, but it's also terrifying.
yeah, no, that's the killdozer moment. Hey, tell everyone where to find your show. I gotta turn on the heat and take a piss. It's so fucking cold.
All right. Well, I guess I'm talking amongst myself because Tommy's microbladder is taking over again. But yes, folks, this is like, if you're ever wondering why I'm like, I am the way I am, it's because this shit, I've been worried about this forever. Um, but it is a really weird moment that we find ourselves at. And I'm just fascinated by the rate at which it's happening, and at the same time terrified by it. I'm sure everybody else is. I don't know. So it's just kind of weird sitting here talking into a microphone by myself. Like maybe we should just all like blank the fucking screen out. Beep. Because I'm not asking Zoom for money. Like I'm not gonna, Zoom's not gonna like ask me for money to keep going. That'd be hilarious, right? Like we know we're in the Ubic world when we're sitting here doing a podcast and we both have to like, insert our credit card number in order to, go beyond 30 minutes, and we're back to like the the uh the old long distance phone model, right? You want to keep talking, insert $1.10. Like, oh my God. I don't know. It's just weird. So, goddamn, Tommy, get your ass back here. How can you have a microbladder and do a friggin' podcast? It's insane. So, I don't know. It's very weird. All right. I don't want to talk anymore. I'm going to wait for Tommy to get back. So there it is. Up, oh, there he is. Good.
I was gonna say about being like a Luddite. I I can definitely understand it now because like most AI, like I don't care about. I just make it whatever. I'm not like a purist or like a psycho about it. The reason I don't use AI is because for me personally, I look at it as a slippery slope. When it goes here's whatever the grok summary of the paragraph. Well, one, just
Mhm.
living through COVID, just in the rearview mirror. I go, well, everything has an agenda. Twitter,
Mhm.
yeah, sure. Twitter's good now, but Twitter will they have an agenda? They all have fucking agendas. I love Rumble. They have an agenda. So
Of
one, I
course.
just go immediately. And then 5 years ago, I was like, well, the FDA wouldn't lie. And now I'm like, you fucking dipshit. Like, yes, they will. Then they'll do it
Mhm.
to give babies myocard. Like, they're evil. So I go, well, one, there's a bias, but two, I go, there's you're going to start atrophying the simple task of summarizing something where you go, hey, like the other day I had a guy on the show. He's like, what do you think about this top? And it's just like 3 paragraphs. I just looked at it and it was felt like recursive modeling and models. And I was just like, yeah, okay. And you just do a quick read through and it's okay. So, what's the real harm in AI? And it's like, yeah, sure. If I need I don't know, understand your book that you just wrote and I gotta get a summary real quick before the show. Okay, I get that. But as a general day-to-day task,
Mhm.
if that if that neuron muscle, if those
Yeah.
pathways start to atrophy, in some cases it's fine. Like a phone, I don't need to remember every phone number. I just need to know the person's name. Okay, fine. But if I
Mhm.
needed to, I could start memorizing numbers. If you start atrophying the simple task of summarizing or finding a bias in this article, if that goes away,
Yep.
and then that's gone for one or two and one day the AI clocks out and you go, well, I'm going to ask grandpa because grandpa still remembers how to think. Well, one day grandpa's going to be dead, or one day grandpa's going to be like, well, I grew up with grok. Then it's just
Mhm.
gone. And so I guess I have
Yep.
this mindset of like, be the World War II vet grandpa that still has a Ma Deuce buried in the backyard and sandbags. Because one day he's like, the fucking Japs are coming and I'm going to mow them down. I look at it and I go, if that atrophies, because think about it, if
Mhm.
that atrophies, and then you start to go, maybe they're using grok against us. Well, that itself is a critical thinking, independent summary of the news where you go, would they be lying? What if not that there are conspiracies, but what if the very concept and the ability to conceive of conspiracies becomes as distant as, like, I don't know, housewives churning butter where you go, dude, I have no fucking idea how to do that. And then it
Right.
seems like there's no resistance because it's like my buddy always says, he's like, if I really was a dictator over the centuries, what I would do is I would just erode the language to nothing but grunts so that they couldn't even
Oh yeah.
verbalize the idea of a revolution.
Right. Newspeak rules.
Yes.
Right.
That's why
Right.
I look at
So,
AI and go,
well,
no.
this is what I found, and I keep doing this. Like I keep bringing this up. What I really like about what I'm seeing from Apple with iOS, the latest version of iOS, is that they want you to build your own AI personal model in here. So it's tuned to what you want and what you do. Now, if it if they're honest, big if they're honest, then the AI model that you have in your phone, then the AI assistant that you build in here that's yours, will have your biases in it, no one else's biases. So whatever information you want to put into it and curate and have it learn off of it's going to learn off of your tendencies, your photos, your pictures, your search results, your this, your that. Now, of course, the information that you can input into this is all based on what information you can go out and get into the world from the world. But the point being is that what we really absolutely need, and I'll be honest with you, given this is something that came up in conversation recently, and I talked about it in another podcast or two. I had a conversation with Dexter White about this the other about a week ago, I think, a little over a week ago, and he was saying, we people are my age have a really bad model for holding on to information because we used to be able to use Google to get information. So we used to be able to put in specific Google prompts with the, know how to get information out of
Yeah.
Google, and then and then you can't. It's like you can't trust bookmarks because half of the web pages are gone now. So now you've got to all these old web pages that you used to have bookmarked, and you go, I can just put these search terms into Google, and then Google won't actually give it to you. Or as he puts it, like it's not even buried on page 7 anymore because there's not even a page 7. It's
Hmm.
just 6 pages worth of Google trying to sell you something. And then page 7 has no results on it, even though Google says there's 500 pages worth of results, search results. But you navigate out to page 7 and there's nothing there. Right. I've run into that forever. So we have so our generation first grew up in the internet, like the grandpas of the internet. Right. We have bad muscle memory. I guess
Yeah.
this whole podcast is really about, thematically, is about muscle memory. We started talking about Windows versus iOS. This is really about muscle memory and how we interface with information. And we came to the conclusion the other day, like we're going to have to build our own personal AI models just to curate all the information that we want to be able to call up. And then, because it's the only way we're going to be able to do it at this point in time, because that's where we're moving to, because they're memory holding everything. So we have to grab all the information, stick it somewhere, and then be able to, and to be able to instantly recall it, we have to have an assistant that can go, yeah, this is the article you're looking for. Right. And they know, and it knows because it knows you. And I think that's what we're headed towards. I think we're headed towards that very quickly. And I think those that start to think in those terms have a much higher probability of being successful in the coming years than those who don't. I'm
Hmm.
finding myself now being, I used to write blog posts as a way to curate the data and the information that I was getting. I used to write every day, 2 to 3 times a day stuff. And I'm not doing that anymore. Now I'm like relying on my memory. And while my memory's fucking good, I'm 57 years old.
Yeah.
Like it's going to start failing me it's going to start failing me in the coming years,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
going to fall behind very quickly. So it's just we're all beginning to feel this moment. Something is fundamentally shifting here about and the worst part is if you're old, if you're at my age and older, like these are and think of it this way: think about the people who are really really resistant to Bitcoin. They're generally my age and older. I mean, there are very few 30 somethings that are like, Bitcoin doesn't make any sense and only gold. There are very few 30-year-old gold only bugs out there. You know what I mean? Like,
It might also be like a
so
self-checking thing where it's like once you get to the age where you no longer want to learn a new thing, it's like you're falling behind. But you might be falling behind a world that you are either not literally a part of because you die from old age or because you've already you've made your crust and you're retiring now and you're on a
mhm.
farm and you're going, yeah, I don't know how to use Grok, but I don't care. I'm 75 and I'm
I don't
watching
give a
videos.
shit. I
So
don't
it
need
might be
to.
like a self like kind of limiting
It's
thing.
important for me because I'm obviously what my
Yeah.
business is, and
Yeah.
my and
No, no, no.
the way I put bread on the table at this point is doing this shit, and I need to stay current. So
The thing that got me when you said that the Apple is creating an AI based off of your own biases, that's again, that's useful. But I just look at like this podcast and like I can't go one, I just don't want to listen to my because I'm retarded and annoying. But like I go back and listen to like an episode from a couple of years ago. And
mhm.
one, I'm like, man, you are way too confident in your like shakily held beliefs. But also, I'm just like, you're actually retarded. Like that's stupid. Why did you say that? That's not true.
Right.
And it's because I'm growing and I hope maturing. That I don't think that the AI might become an echo chamber that thing might inhibit you from evol like so if I just like well
Yeah,
we created a Tommy avatar from all 1600 episodes and now I don't have to do a show. I just put the avatar in and it talks to Tom. I'm like that's fine, but in a year I will have grown to where this avatar no longer represents me. And if you have something to where you should be challenging yourself to where you look back at old like what if I had an AI that curated my shows and it just showed me what it thought I wanted to see? I wouldn't look back and go, "Oh, that's embarrassing." Because it wouldn't
no,
show it to me and that would stagnate growth.
yeah. So
So I don't
yeah, so
know.
you're gonna have to. So now the AI is gonna have to learn how to project your evolution as a person. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
At
in
which
order
point
to
I
be able.
just go, "Well, why do I need any of this shit? Why don't I just keep living and growing like a normal
Well, yeah, no,
thing? What
obviously,
the fuck are
I'm
we
talking
doing?"
about curate. I'm really just talking about curating the past.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
more worried about curating the past in order to be able to call it up so that I can inform my present and future commentary. You know what I mean? That's what I was talking about with this, not
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
any
no,
way, manner,
yeah.
shape, or form that it was going to create a version of me that was a reasonable
You know, I know,
facsimile.
I know.
Are you kidding me? Like, no, that's like waiting for the day when we have like the Lincoln simulacras having fucking melancholy, having like bouts of existential dread and not being able to teach at the school. This is We Can Build You, Philip K. Dick. Literally, where the teachers at the schools were in the future were like these like historical figures. So there was like Einstein would be teaching the kids physics, and Lincoln would be teaching American history, and then they built models so good that they put Lincoln's
Depression.
manic depression, to program that in, and the thing couldn't get out of bed in the morning. Actually, to actually teach the kids how to. He didn't want to go to work. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to live in that world. Like, this is I it's I oh God.
I
And
kind
We
of
Can Build You is not even a good book, but that idea is so freaking like.
I don't know. I kind of like that because like well one thing I don't like the idea about AI curating the past is like I don't want AI to pop my bubble. In that I vividly remember sitting in free period my first I think it's high school quarters. So like fall 2008, 18, sitting in free period with my friends, getting ready to go to college. And we just hated it because there was nothing to do. It's a Catholic school, so we're not allowed to like you have to sit there and your fucking faggoty uniform. And I remember one of my friends just went like, we're just gonna miss this so much one day. And I remember going, yeah. And he's like, maybe we shouldn't remember how boring because like every once in a while we'd be able to go outside and play like foursquare with a tennis ball. And he was just like, I'm just gonna remember this as high school. And I was like, that's probably a good idea. But it fucked me because he brought that up. I always think
Yeah,
about that where I go, no, high school actually wasn't that great. But I'm like, no, I want the lie. I want to like look back and see it through rose-tinted glasses and be like, oh, we are so young, like young and carefree. And like, I know it's horseshit. Don't break my bubble. Like I
right.
don't want AI to be like, well, actually, you know, COVID wasn't that fun. I know you're looking back at it romantically, the madness of it, because it's 2075, but it was actually really scary. They didn't know if there was going to be a coup in the United States. Shut the fuck up. I want to look back and be like, man, that was so great. Like we had
I
to
bought a
wear,
lot of guns.
yeah,
I spent a
bought
lot of time with my
guns.
wife.
It was crazy. Like the election was stolen in January. Like I don't like right now. It's kind of we go. It's probably good the 2020 election was. I legitimately believe that because Trump is just now on a fucking warpath.
yes, yes,
I don't want you to go, even just 4 years ago. I don't want you to peek back and go, it was actually pretty. I'm gonna go, shut up, because it's so great now. They're auditing Fort Knox. Don't pop my bubble, or I'll kill you and myself. Don't do this to me.
well, the thing is, Tommy, you have to remember that um, we have to look at the past. We have to edit the past in some ways to remember the good stuff because that's how we get up in the morning
That's
to
that's
deal
also
with
what makes
this.
life beautiful. If you go back and you
Right,
go,
of course
most
it
of
is.
it's beautiful. That's yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I am always reminded of my wife coming realizing that the reason why women have second children is because their bodies betray them during
They
childbirth
forget
so
the
that
fucking
because they
first.
forget the pain of the
They
first
literally, the mind goes, it was just
literally the oxytocin that or the hormonal cocktail that your body puts women under during childbirth
yeah.
blanks out most of the
Yeah,
pain
it
so
wasn't
that
that
they'll
bad.
actually have a second one. That wasn't that bad. Let's have another one.
But isn't
Because if
that
they actually
good?
fully remember like the pain of it, they would never go through it again.
But then isn't there like a greater good if the mother goes, I know it's lying to me, but that the fact that my brain lied to me allowed me to have like my mom. She's like, all I ever wanted to be was a mom, and she has four boys. And wouldn't you go, well, no, it's actually kind of good because it did make you just fucking
Yeah,
forget about it.
of course.
I look at that as like, the shark bites your arm off and you don't feel pain, you're just in shock. Your brain's taking care of you. Your brain's
Right.
going, you might not make it out of this. Or we're just gonna, hey, you're kind of you feel high on endorphins. And look, don't think about the shark, the water shimmering. Your brain's taking care of you.
Right.
And so when I look back and go, I don't look at how awful fucking high school or whatever the fuck. I just look back at it, and even it's been almost 11 years since my older brother committed suicide. I now even look at the path of that and how me and my remaining brothers have grown, and I now even look at that and I go, we came a long way. The worst thing ever, and my
Right.
brain's going, you kind of grew as a person. Like life is such an unending horror that I don't need to go in and take the one thing that seems like God kind of helped us out on. It's like, by the way, your brain's going to edit the past to where everything kind of seems cool and the future kind of seems bright. Why should I go in and be like, it's actually all bad? Like, why would you? It's like what Tim Dillon said. You're at a party, it's the last weekend of high school, and you're just all drinking, screaming, you're fucking into your friend's parents' bedroom, and one friend comes up and goes, do you think we're all going to stay in touch or we're going to drift apart? You go, shut the fuck up and enjoy the party. That's
Right.
how I look. I'm like,
It's the
it's
parable about
actually
the
just
monk.
your brain editing your memory. I'm like, shh, 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 shh.
It's
Let me
like the
remember
parable
the
of
90s. Just
right.
shh.
It's like the parable of the monk being chased by the tigers,
I don't know.
and hanging off the cliff. And there's tigers below him, and there's tigers above him. He's hanging by a branch, and he looks over, and there's a strawberry. And he pulls the strawberry and he eats the strawberry. That's the
This is
Dallas.
a great
Yeah, it's like,
strawberry.
and why? Because in that moment, there's something beautiful right there. Live in
Yeah.
the moment. Be like dogs. Live in the moment
Yeah.
as
That's
best as you
how,
can.
like, I know it's horseshit. Like,
Right.
let it be horseshit. But also then is it horseshit? If your brain does that naturally, it's not like we all have to like take a pill every day. If our brains just do that, and it allows us to edit painful memories until we're most of life, you go, that was we were 21 and crazier, man. We were 25 and crazy. And yeah, no, I know that a relationship ended terribly, but man, my first love and like the fact that that's like a natural that comes with the system, like that's stock, that's pretty cool. And I look at the future and go, maybe I wonder I will grow old. Maybe I will have grandkids and a dog and a like that's so if I'm looking at the past and it seems all warm and fuzzy, and I'm looking at the future and it seems all warm and fuzzy, and I'm in this bubble right now, and immediately there's suffering. You gotta pay rent, you gotta blah, 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 blah. but I'm looking forward and backwards. It's like I'm wearing glasses right now. I don't give a fuck that it's that this is altering the prisms. It allows me to look outside and see like beautiful snow. I don't give a shit that it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it kind of a beautiful thing that our brains naturally look in the rearview mirror and look forward and go, it's all pretty good? Like what how much of a like a self-torturing asshole would you have to be like, actually your neurons are editing the bad parts and you'd be like, what the fuck? Like,
What's wrong
by
with
the way,
you?
you really enjoying that glass of whiskey? You know, the thing is ethanol binds to some receptors and you're like, dude, shut the fuck up. It's
Exactly.
whiskey and it's making me enjoy hanging out with my family on Thanksgiving. Like, what is wrong with you? I don't know where I was going
Oh
with that,
well,
but
I'll be honest with you. What's wrong with him? He's French.
yeah, no, no, shoot him. Yeah, fucking kill him.
This is a dig at the French absurdists,
Oh,
the
I
French
don't.
postmodernists. They're the ones that were obsessed with breaking our lives down to that life is not just absurd. The life isn't absurd; it's unnecessary. And fuck these people.
Oh,
Life
yeah, fuck
is
these packets.
like fuck. Well, yeah, literally, like fuck these people. And they're the ones that, and and honestly, it's a mind virus
It
of just
is.
envy. It's a mind virus of envy, and I have no patience for it. Life is hard enough without a bunch of people telling you that, oh, by the way, you're just a clump of cells. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, what if me and my buddy were talking about the other night, and I was like, I know people around the world are like, oh, Americans, you believe your own press release. And I go, yeah, when I was younger, edgy Reddit teenager, you're like, it's just nationalism. And, I'm older now, and I go, you don't know, like, the actual, like, I'm like, there's the only constant throughout this entire podcast, every episode I've ever done, is that flag behind me. It's the only
Right.
constant. It used to be draped over the Bowflex in my parents' spare room above their garage. And that's you don't know what it's like to truly love where you and I know there's flaws and I know there's corruption and there's been terrible things that the US has done, but you don't know what it you just sit there as you're a fucking Reddit European, you're like the Americans. I'm like the fact that I look at that flag and I go, God, I fucking love it. I love this place. I go,
Mm-hmm.
I have multiple guns in this house and I can order ammunition and McDonald's on the same phone. Like and then furthermore, to not just love your country, which is if you're from some smaller country, that's beautiful to love your own country. But
Of
then to
course.
also objectively and numerically be able to prove that my country's better than you. Like it's one thing to love your country. It's another thing to go and it's actually makes more money, has more aircraft carriers, and we've put more people on the moon.
Right.
The fact that you don't oh, it's just jingoism. It's a remnant from evolution to enjoy tribalism. Like, no, you're just someone that doesn't know what it's like to see fucking Trump in his Secret Service fucking limo going around the NASCAR track and be like,
Mhm.
ah, fuck yeah. Like people going like, I am rooting for America so hard in the whatever the Four Nations Cup. Did I know that this sport existed a year ago? No. Did I know that this cup existed more than 7 hours ago? No. But I am cheering my fucking heart out. Like that's what I mean. It's like so it does seem to be like you said, it's so much of, if not almost all of life is so difficult and so painful. The Buddhists do have it right. Life is suffering.
Yeah.
There's a couple shimmering pieces, and you're gonna what
Oh, there's
spray
more
it
than a
matte
couple.
black? Oh, there's
More
a
than
lot.
more
Yeah.
than a couple. Well, I mean, look, it's the whole thing, and we should, you're the suffering is there to make you understand how great the good stuff is, and the good stuff is only put in context of the things that are terrible, and you know again, I know, like, the day after the election, my wife turned to me and she said, we're going to look back on this and go, it's a good thing Trump lost in 2020.
It's the
She
it,
said it on November 6th, dude.
oh, that's wild. I didn't see it until
Yeah,
like
no, she
January.
said it on November 6th.
What the fuck?
And she's like, we're probably gonna look back on this, and my wife is amazing. From
No,
and
it's
technically this is the 33rd anniversary of our saying the vows of our marriage. We
today.
signed the wedding. We have a weird, a dumb story about this, that we signed the marriage license on the 14th, which is Valentine's Day, and because we were such fucking anti we were so anti, romantic at that point. We refused to actually go say the vows and make it
Waited
and
a
make it
week.
make it permanent. So we waited till the next Friday. So I have the anniversary week
Hey
basically,
man,
which
congratulations.
also gives me the opportunity to surprise her when I just like when she gets to trying to guess what day I'm gonna
What the
I'm gonna
That's
have the flowers.
beautiful.
Right. So it's 33 years. And somebody asked her the other day, she said, so how, 33 years, so what's your secret for longevity? And she just whipped out without even thinking. She said, marry someone with the same abandonment issues that complement yours and you'll never leave each other.
Just That's like an organic chemistry. Like, how do you make the chemicals bond? Just like straight face, be like SN1, SN2 reactions. Very simple. The same
Yeah.
abandonment.
She was like, no, yeah. Because we came to that conclusion a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it turns out that once we understood that, but I still don't. I never wanted to leave this woman. She's like the
Yeah,
most
sure.
amazing thing I've ever met. Like
That's
so
beautiful. I kind of don't
I
want
don't
to
know
go
if it's
back to talking
beautiful. I don't
about
know if it's beautiful or if it's not, but whatever it is,
who gives
it's
a
my
fuck,
reality,
dude.
and it's a reality that will never really be modeled by AI.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna wrap it up with that because it would
Yeah,
just be so tasteless to go back talking about gold after that. Be like, anyway, let's
no,
talk about refi. No, no, no. None of that
yeah,
fucking shit,
yeah.
man. It
I got
does
another
feel
show in
tasteless.
about 20
Yeah,
minutes anyway, so I need
yeah,
to.
we'll wrap it up. Dude, that was fun as shit. I always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, no, I
It's a fun
enjoyed it. It was a
spiral.
great
It's
way
a
to do a
fun
Friday afternoon.
spiral. That's what I
Yeah,
would say. It's a
absolutely.
fun spiral. Up or
Yep.
down, I don't know. That's for you to decide. For everybody listening, please go in. Please go support him on Patreon. Please go read his blog or fucking podcast, Gold Goats Guns, and please go follow him on Twitter. And dude, as always, thank you so much for your time.
Have a good weekend, Tommy.
You too, brother. Thank you so much. Happy anniversary, and thank you for the talk, man. Take care.